What's going on? This is NFL fans. I know the NFL draft is a couple weeks, well, a little bit longer, a couple weeks away, and this video is for the pure NFL fans who don't watch college football, and as the title says, UCLA Bruins in the NFL draft. And what I'm doing here is to help inform you guys on a couple of guys I know who will be drafted and just some simple insight, from a fan perspective, because I know a lot of you NFL fans just kind of listen to the scouts and experts on seeing who you got. Well, it's always good to hear some insight from a fan who knows the people and watched them pretty frequently in college. So, with that being said, the first UCLA Bruin is Akeem Ayers, one of the guys who declared early. Akeem Ayers is an outside linebacker. I think he's ranked near the top of the outside linebackers. And he was a beast for us. Definitely one of the better outside linebackers we had. His stock went down because of the combine, and during the second half of the season he was injured. So I'm going to assume that injury carried, or he was limited during the combine, and his stock went way down. But in that first half, and even the year before as a sophomore, he showed he was NFL ready. Great awareness. He's able to sack guys. He's able to do well in coverage, and he even has the athleticism. There's some tape of him actually catching a pick six against Oregon where he leaped real high in the air, caught the ball, and then he barely landed both feet in bounds like it was the NFL to get a pick six. Very great athleticism and awareness, though. During the game against Texas last fall, he owned them, even though he only had like one sack, one forced fumble, one interception in that game. He was all over the place, making his presence known. So wherever he falls in the second round, assuming he falls there, you got to steal. I think he's worth taking. He'll probably be considered a reach by the experts at 15, but I would take him at least at 20 or 21. He's definitely been a beast for UCLA as a linebacker. Now going on the other side, Raheem Moore, probably the other guy you've heard of because he's one of the better safeties in the class. Raheem Moore is a little bit overrated. I definitely would not take him in the first round. If you have like the 30th, 31st pick, if you trade up to that area to draft him, don't do it. This guy was not a liability on our secondary, but he was overrated. I know the NFL scouts will say he once led the nation in interceptions. 3 of those interceptions in 2009 came against San Diego State, which that was a bad San Diego State team that they beat. And 3 of them, Raheem Moore's interceptions, came against him. 2 of them also came off of Jonathan Crompton, who at the time was a bad quarterback for the Tennessee Volunteers. So 5 of those interceptions from when he led the nation in interceptions, it wasn't that good. He's okay in coverage. He's not a liability, but don't think he's all that, because during last season he was exposed. He had a lot of tackles, and a lot of them I think were mop-up tackles because he was able to allow the catch and stuff. It could have been our system, and I think the scouts are probably basing it off the upside, but he definitely is not the safety you want for instant impact. If you have a good project, if you're, say, the Dallas Cowboys who needs a safety and you're going to take him in the second round with your early pick, I guess it's not so bad, but don't take him in the first round or don't try to trade up for him. I just think he's overrated, and he had a bunch of mop-up tackles to pad the stats. Now going on, the other Bruin that I know of is Kai Forbath, our kicker. Those who need a kicker, like the Dallas Cowboys, who, David Bueller is not doing so great out there. You got Kai Forbath. You could take him in the 6th or 7th round. I think he'd be a great kicker for y'all, or for any team that needs a kicker. This guy was the Groza Award winner a couple of years ago, and his senior year he was hurt, and he was still able to make kicks. I think he'd be hopefully he finds a job. I know none of these guys are going to find jobs if the lockout continues, but Kai Forbath I think will find a job somewhere, whether it's the CFL or UFL, assuming that the lockout continues and he goes undrafted. So Kai Forbath will be worth it as well. A couple of other West Coast players I followed a lot. Stephen Paya out of Oregon State, defensive lineman. The guy's a beast, but he didn't do as well in the season like you'd hope. He has the athleticism, though. So those who want an athlete, you do have a guy who's also a great leader for Oregon State, he was. Also Cameron Jordan out of Cal, probably familiar with that name, out of the defensive line. he carried Cal, and Cal had its struggles at times, and yeah, they had losses, but he's the one that kept them close. Some of those games they lost that were defensive, he definitely single-handedly carried them on the defensive line and was a great leader. So he'd be worth it in the first round, like 16, 17 overall. I think it's worth taking Cameron Jordan. Definitely a solid player. And then Shane Vereen is a speedy running back, kind of like Javid Best, but didn't get the hype as much as Javid Best did because obviously he played a year after Best. So Shane Vereen would be a nice pick in the second or third round, but it's if you want speed. That's the biggest thing. I know there's a bunch of other players like Tyron Smith, who is a great lineman for USC. He's expected to be in the first round. And then, of course, Jake Locker, you're probably familiar with. He did not have a great senior year when it came to stats. He had great leadership, and he got them wins with his legs, but his arm and his throwing stats were not impressive. That's why his stock went way down. I don't even know why he was considered the #1 overall pick a year ago, but being his senior year, he definitely dropped off, and his arm, he hasn't shown that big clutch gene. He had like 2 good games where he was clutch, but when it comes to throwing and you need that 4th down throw, I don't know if you could trust him. Obviously, you draft him as a project quarterback, I'll take him as a main guy. But that's about it. I know a bunch of other West Coast players I couldn't mention on here, but that's my information for you guys who are NFL fans and you're watching the draft and you see those players' names come up. Now you know. As always, go Bruins. My UCLA channel's in the description for those who never seen me before. So I'll see you guys later, and enjoy the draft when it comes. See y'all later.